Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Catherine McLean, founder and CEO of Dylan Green, and today I have with me the lovely ladies, Hopper and Erin Duncan from SEIA. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Over the bridge from me. So I just want to congratulate you all on all the hard work and success with the Inflation Reduction Act. For those of you who don't already know, if you've been living under your bed somewhere, Abby is the CEO and president of SEIA, which is the Solar Energy Industry Association, and Erin is the vice president of Congressional Affairs at SEIA. And I wanted to speak with you both because your work in this industry has been monumental. And despite the fact that you came from other industries, can you provide a brief overview of your work prior to joining the clean energy industry? Abby?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go first. So Catherine, thank you so much for having us. It's such an honor to be here with you and also with my dear friend and colleague, Erin, who is an amazing leader. I have been serving as the CEO of SEIA since early 2017. And I'm a lawyer by training. So arguing and advocating is my sort of academic background. I was a lawyer in private practice for 10 years. I was a federal law clerk. I was a mergers and acquisitions attorney, and I was a divorce attorney. So not really on the path to energy law, even much less sort of the solar industry per se. We can talk about why, but I made a pretty abrupt career change and went into government work. I was the deputy assistant counsel at the Public Service Commission in Maryland for a couple of years. That was my foray into energy. I didn't know anything about energy. There was a lot of utility regulation and that sort of thread of the energy world. And then I served as Governor O'Malley's energy advisor. That's where sort of the politics and the policy started to come together. And right before this job, I was the director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management at the Department of Interior under President Obama. My portfolio there was almost exclusive, I would say about 80% oil and gas, right? If you think about, we had jurisdiction over the entire outer continental shelf. So the vast billions of acres, and the vast majority of that energy generation still is from oil and gas. There was a burgeoning and evolving renewable energy portfolio of offshore wind, but that was a very small portion of what I did. So I came here to this job as the head of the solar industry, most recently from the oil and gas world.
Interesting. Erin?
Yeah, so I am not a lawyer. I have a master's degree in English, and came to SEIA after spending almost 12 years at the National Education Association as a lobbyist there. I did a lot, I helped lead their Republican outreach and did a lot of training in different opportunities there, staffed a couple of presidential conventions. And then prior to coming to NEA, I spent 8 years on Capitol Hill, working for 2 Republican members of Congress in my home state of Nebraska. But this is my first foray, as you said, into renewable energy. And yeah, I hadn't really touched energy policy with the exception of some public lands policy when I was at the National Education Association.
So do you think coming from outside of our industry has been beneficial, Erin?
It certainly has led me to have a different perspective on things. I remember when I was interviewing for this job, talking to folks who are now my colleagues about communicating on the Hill. And, so much of the work that I do is basic communication, explaining our issues, which can get really wonky in terms that are relatable and easily digestible and specific to, a district or a state policy. And that this person said, this would be an asset to me because I was learning these issues and I would have to, in order to explain them, I have to learn them, but explain them in plain language. So I definitely brought that with me. I think also, everybody's learning, and particularly in renewable energy, I feel like a long timer is someone who's been here for like 7, 8, 10 years, because our industry isn't that old.
Right.
So while it certainly can be daunting coming in from the outside, particularly coming from a field like education policy, where stuff has been on the books for 50, years or longer, and depending on the state, everyone's in the process of learning because this industry is evolving so quickly.
I think what's interesting too, though, is that and I didn't know this about you, that you had worked with Republican senators, because I've become a big fan of Heather Reams at CREZ, and really being able to speak the language of both right and left. Do you think that that's also been a benefit for you?
Yes. And I think it also, just comes down to communicating with people and understanding what makes them tick.
Yeah.
Every single member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, has to get reelected. Every single member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, has to raise money.
Yep.
Every single member of Congress wants to bring jobs to their district. That is the same whether you're, on the far left or the far right.
Yep.
And so because we're in solar, those industries just always rise to the top. And we always, are able to share that information with folks that we're lobbying.
Yeah. And then Abby, obviously coming from outside the industries, oil and gas, how do you think that helped you be able to champion this incredible legislation that we've had passed?
Yeah, I think one way in which it was really helpful is that, I was the regulator, right? So I got lobbied by one of the most well-funded industries in our nation, right? So I got to see what it's like and what that advocacy campaign looks like, what the comms looks like, what the public support it builds looks like. I didn't fully appreciate how valuable that would be, but once I came to this side, I realized, like, wait a minute, a lot of experience to draw on here.
Yes.
And I agree with Erin, sort of not being a solar policy wonk meant that I too had to figure out how to communicate these issues in very relatable, easily translatable terms. I think that's one of our magic sauces, is that we can take highly technical information, super, important business priorities, and put them in the language in which policymakers need to hear them in order to act on them.
Yep.
And we're not particularly wedded to, like the history of what has been. And you need to understand what it was like in 2007. And it's important historical context, but we're in 2022.
Right.
I think those skills are super important, right? And they like Erin said, they transfer across party lines, they transfer across geographic lines, they transfer across industries.
Yeah. This is something I feel really strongly about. Like, I've met some incredible women, diverse candidates at FERC, for example, who would love to get on the other side of the fence and to, work for a solar developer or wind developer. And they just really struggle because they just get kind of pigeonholed in this kind of regulator. And I think to myself, that just seems like it would be so valuable to be to be on the other side. But what do I know? I'm not a solar expert.
No, you're not a solar. Well, I might argue at that point, but what you are an expert at is sort of how to translate skills, right? And you're exactly right that being the recipient of lobbying and advocacy makes you a much better lobbyist and advocate.
Yeah. And I think, when we're looking at, again, we're talking about federal affairs today, but it's always coming up with a game plan, right? Who is your audience? What tools do you have? What holes exist in the research that you need to go out and get resources for, which Abby was always super terrific on getting us those resources. The IRA did not fall from the sky. We earned that bill, right? So I'm just saying, those skills, at least in my part of the business here at SEIA, those are true whether you're, we're selling solar now, but whether you're selling solar or you're, coming from a totally different industry, that skill set transfers for sure.
And speaking of which, my next question, thank you, Erin, is around transferability. So what would you say what would you each say it takes to succeed in your roles? And are there certain industries or types of jobs outside of clean tech that you think are kind of more conducive to transitioning into our industry, or roles like yours specifically?
You know, I have the really amazing privilege of being the CEO, which with that comes, like, it's a certain kind of skills that I need. I need to be good at managing people. I need to be good at building a business and to be really good at communicating. But I think one of my most important skills is the focusing on the big picture and the strategy, right? And sort of constantly keeping us moving towards the large thing we're trying to accomplish and not getting dragged into the daily, like, do we send this email? Do we not send this email?
Yeah.
Like, this particular person upset. Like, I'm aware of all of that, but it's not my best and highest use to be managing all of that. I have really amazing people like Erin, who she's excellent at it. So I don't have to be all in that. So I would say for me in my role, skills around communication, people, understanding, like, you know, I'm leading a multi-million-dollar, like tens of millions of dollar business. Like that takes some time and energy and effort. Those are the skills that I think make me really good at my job and this long-term strategy. And so I think, you know, I am always like when I'm hiring, I'm looking for people. I actually don't really care where people come from as a hiring manager, right? I hired Erin because she was the best lobbyist, and I knew that she was super smart and could learn energy. But what I didn't want to have to teach her was her trade, right? Her trade is lobbying, and she has the solar lens on now. So I look for people, and it doesn't matter what industry, as I said, like, who are really good communicators, who can write clearly, but also have that ability to navigate people and personalities, right? We are in a very, given the work we do, we're in a very human-centric operation. And so both members of Congress, governors, state legislators, regulatory commissions, our members, right, who are our customers, I and my team are interfacing with hundreds of people a week. And so that's like, I mean, we just hired someone who had her own business in hospitality, because we do a lot of events, right? I don't care if she knows about solar, she knows how to put on a really great event, right? My head of membership and sales comes from the Association of Bus, like the buses that you go on tours with. Who knew there was an association for that? I didn't. But he's really good at sales, right? So now he knows about solar, but that, like, we just hired an attorney on a regulatory team I worked with an Interior and, you know, was at National Wildlife. So it doesn't have to be sort of in this insular industry. It really is, I think, for any employer, deciding what are the skill sets that are most important and seeing the transferability. But I'd love to hear what Erin thinks about this, given that she lived it.
Yeah, I think the most important, all of the stuff Abby said, but also, like, and I think she said this implicitly, but I want to say it explicitly, like the ability to, like, listen and have some humility around what you don't know. Like, that's really, really important. And I think that's, you know, I don't know how that transfers from skill to skill. I think it's more of like a personal characteristic, but
attribute.
I think it's very, very important when you're learning anything, and having some curiosity, you know, around, like, I have a liberal arts background, as I started with. So, you know, my skill set is knowing a tiny bit about a lot of stuff. And so the opportunity to go deep, I mean, now we're doing implementation. I mean, learning about certified payroll. It's interesting. Like, it's interesting to learn about how businesses run. And it's so phenomenal to talk to people that work at our companies and learn about, like, what they care about or challenges they face permitting something on federal lands, and then figuring out solutions that either exist or, you know, bills we can endorse and work to pass, or coming up with strategies to, like, advocate for changes. That's just, like, for example. So like problem solving, I think that's
Yeah.
really a tremendous important skill in lobbying and in life, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that those two things. And then also I have to go back to Abby. I mean, I don't do just the work myself. I have a whole team that works with me in the Congressional Affairs Department, and they're just phenomenal people. And like, they're good people and they're good at their jobs. And that makes everything so much better. There's people that like to be with other people and kind of build around that same value of sort of trust and respect, which I have to say, not just because she's my boss, but like working at SEIA, like that is just like such a phenomenal piece of who we are.
I see it though, because I have the privilege of obviously being in the same location as you. I hang out with you guys a lot, and I see it amongst all of you that you're very good at your jobs, of course, but you're also just lovely people to be around. Like, you're just a pleasure to engage with. And I think that that's really indicative of the culture that you're building there. And this is what I try so hard to explain to clients is like, please, 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 like, we can, let's not just interview an experience. Let's look at skills and attributes. Let's look at cultural fit. You hit the nail on the head, Erin. I have so many clients that we talk about intellectual curiosity, like someone who, I have a woman at the moment who's so keen to get in our space and who's like putting herself through the solar, industry, what's it called? SEI, and doing like the modeling tests and everything. So she can really make herself and me, quite frankly, proud when she's doing these interviews. And it's like, I just want to give these people an opportunity that there's so many jobs that we're trying to fill, So.
Yeah. And I think it does, as a person doing the hiring, it takes a bit of a leap of faith.
Yeah.
It does. But I will say in my own career, every job I've had, I wasn't necessarily qualified on the paper, right? If you looked at why would you hire the CEO of a solar industry association who doesn't know that much about the solar industry? Or why would you put me at the head of oil and gas when I come from Maryland? Like, we don't have oil and gas in Maryland, right? Like, there's just a litany. I mean, I didn't take family law or evidence before I became a divorce lawyer, you guys. Like, my career trajectory is like, find something I've never done and don't know anything about, and then go be the boss of it. Like, that's what I do. But I think it's like, people kept taking risks on me, right? Like, my bosses always have taken a risk on me. And I think it's because I've had the pleasure and honor of working for people that have valued intellectual curiosity, culture, and smart, right? Like, we're really smart. Like, we're really smart people, and we can figure that part out.
But I really firmly believe that past behavior is indicative of future behavior.
Yeah.
So like, you are a winner. And whenever you've tried to do something, you've succeeded. And that's what, I think this is what I am trying to talk to my clients about, is it's not just about, a year here, a year there, a year here, a year there. Like, what can you accomplish in that time? It's about like, have they gone places and done things and been successful? If they have, even if that is in like a carnival, then they're going to be successful in, it really is about the person.
Yeah. Well, I know and then Erin, I'll let you talk, but I just want to brag on you for a minute. Like, when I checked Erin's references, right? Like, I check them myself for a person that reports directly to me. The way that her colleagues and former bosses spoke about her, it wasn't about like, she knows the most about this one arcane piece of education law. It was the way that she approached the work and sort of how she brought her whole self to her work, and how she was an incredible collaborator, and not just a part of a collaboration, but leading the collaboration. Yeah. And so, as you think about like employers and what they're looking for, though, like, rely on the people that have worked with them. Yeah. They'll tell you. Because I've had lots of also checks where I hang up the phone and think, oh yeah, I'm not going to hire that person.
You dodged a bullet, and they may have the best resume of the bunch.
Amazing. So.
What were you going to say, Erin?
Oh, no, first of all, thank you for sharing that, Abby. And I also just want to say, like, I've learned that from Abby also. Even, fairly recently, we were going through a hiring process, and it just the gut check, and also really listening when you check those references, I think is really, really important, what people are saying and not saying. Like, it's not just about winning, though. It's also like the battles you fought, right? So at NEA, it's the nation's largest professional organization. It's a labor union. It has 3 million members. Like I felt like I really saw and did and experienced the highs and lows of what it means to work in a really high profile, powerful organization. And I knew what that felt and tasted like. And I also knew what losing felt like. And I also knew kind of like, I just felt like I was like forged in some flames there. And I think bringing that experience here was really helpful. So it's knowing, how to pick yourself back up and keep fighting too, because there was a bill that I worked on that finally got signed into law after I started here at SEIA 3.5 years ago that I worked on at the NEA for 12 years, because sometimes it takes that long to pass something. And so just knowing that, like, sometimes you're in it for a long game, sometimes it's a really intense period, but you have to keep picking yourself up and moving forward. That's really important. So those are the things that I brought from my old job.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. As much as I don't like to admit it, the losses you do learn more from, but I'll never like them as much.
I'm with Erin. When I was working for the governor, I was lobbying for an offshore wind bill, and I got my, rear end handed to me twice before we passed it, right? And what I learned from each of and they were public, humiliating losses, because I had my governor on, in front of the legislative committee testifying next to me, and then couldn't deliver a win. That's not really ideal, you guys, for like a career development strategy. But I learned a lot about how to build a coalition, how to understand political power, like what narrative we needed. And, and it was the second offshore wind bill in the country to pass, and look at that industry now.
So what I want to talk about next is what you're most proud of. What are some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of in terms of your clean energy work thus far?
Erin, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I think what I am most proud of is the IRA. I think that is still sinking in, the reality of that passing. But what I am really the most proud of is the 1.5, 2 years before. And Abby can share her own. There were so many things that fell just right. So there's the right place, right time, right scenario stuff that goes into it. Sure. And then there's also like just slugging it out, drudging through CRS reports, talking to like 100 million people, it felt like, just endless Zoom calls, and doing that all through COVID also. Like, I felt like I was lobbying with one hand tied behind my back a lot of the time. Not only that, but also like I'm a mom with 2 little kids, and my kids didn't go to school for 18 months. So and keeping my team whole and like happy, and just the whole product. So it's not just the bill, but like really, if you ask me, the whole experience of that, I'm really proud of.
You must be proud of Erin.
I guess I'm proud of Erin. Yeah.
And I'm
also proud of like all of us. I'm proud. Like, there was not one single person at SEIA who coasted at all during that period.
But I think sometimes as women, we don't give ourselves enough of a pat on the back and like look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I did a really good job.
Yeah, it was a good feeling. I will let you. Yes. Okay.
All right.
The best part, I will say, my daughter learned about global warming in online school at 2nd grade, which was, we can discuss the curriculum their choice for a 7-year-old, and like immediately, like literally started bawling. And so it felt really good to be able to tell my kids, like, mommy's doing something to make this better for you. I mean,
I'll just say one thing off the back of that before I let you speak, Abby. Dylan, my son, was on his tablet. He was playing a video game, and it was a wind turbine, and it was powering like a home. And he was like learning about like the wind turbine. And I was like, I do that. That's what I do. I do like that electricity and stuff. And he's like the hair dryer. And I was like the hair dryer. Yes. And it was like, it's such an amazing feeling. Like, it sounds so silly, but it's like, you feel like what you're doing matters. Like, it's important, you know?
Because it is.
Yeah. Tell me everything, Abby. What are you most proud of?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I echo what Erin said, that the passage of the IRA is absolutely a professional highlight. And the journey to get there, the multi-year journey to get there, and the conditions under which we got there were pretty amazing. Erin did just a great job of outlining the strategy and sticking with it. And you can imagine that, given sort of the highs and the lows and the intrigue and the rumors, that Erin and I and everyone took so much incoming, questioning our judgment, questioning our assessment, questioning our tactics. It was a lot. Like, we're here smiley with lipstick on, but like, it was not always smiley with lipstick on times, right? There were a lot of moments where we thought, are we doing this right? Like, is this? And Erin had a vision about where we were headed. I tell her all the time, I'll follow her anywhere. So that's sort of the like marquee part, but I feel really strongly like one of the things I've learned that I'm really good at, and I'll practice saying that I am really good at, is putting together a team, like a really high functioning, extremely competent and like fun team, right? Like, we have a really great time here at SEIA. We really like each other. The morale is high. Like, it's fun to work here, and we work really hard, but it's really fun. And, you know, I've been here long enough now that I've got to really shape and mold the team. And some people have been here much longer than me, and some people have joined since I've gotten here, but it's really meshed really well. So I feel really, really good about that. And I would say the third thing is that I didn't know anybody when I got in this industry, like legit nobody. And I have made it my business to meet particularly young women, right? Like young women in this industry. I just had lunch with one right before this chat that we're having. And to be able to watch them, I sound like an old lady, like watch them grow and like develop in their careers. And like, some of them have had babies now, some of them have made career changes, some of them have gotten divorced, some of them have gotten married. And it is very much a two-way conversation, right? Like, it's not just me being like, oh, you're doing so great, but they provide feedback to me and they give me like insight on what's happening on the marketplace. I was just thinking when I was sitting here, like, I know both of your children really well, like Erin's too, and Dylan, right? Like, that's pretty magical to work, like have this industry and have all of us have built this community around us where we not just know each other.
And we know your kids too.
And you know my kids, right? Yeah, they're amazing. And just so that the world does not stop at the professional door. And that's the kind of world that I want to work in. I know not everyone wants to do that, but for me, so much of what I do is a huge part of who I am. And so I like having that fluidity between my professional colleagues and my personal life, and being known, like Erin and I and you, Catherine, like we show up as highly competent professional moms, right? Like, we're all of those things, and we don't have to choose one over the other.
And that's one of the things that I love so much about the space. And I think what all the candidates that I place in the space who aren't from the space, they're like, boy, you were right, Catherine. Everybody is so nice. Like, everybody's so friendly. And I guess like what kind of makes me a little worried sometimes is like, as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's like more and more companies and money and opportunities, like I think it needs to happen, and I'm excited for it. But I hope we don't lose that. Because it's one of the things I love most about the industry, you know?
Yeah. Well, hopefully we won't, right? As we build these networks, there will always be this like support system of women, in particular women, not just women, that hold each other up.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I was thinking about RE Plus and just like the vibe there last week. You know, we had 27,000 people, which only represents like a fraction of our industry. And is it weird to say like a trade show felt joyful? But I think it actually felt joyful. One, we were all glad to be out of the house and like doing like a work trip like this. But also like, it's really, really exciting to continue to like innovate and connect with people. And I agree with Abby, like it's so exciting to see, you know, we have a colleague who just got married and like her career is taken off, and it's just like, I'm like gonna get teary-eyed, but like it's so joyful to watch someone like just get on the escalator and just just keep going, in both personally and professionally.
The women's events at SEIA, I mean, you couldn't get in if you liked to binge on it. People were standing on chairs and tables. Like, I mean, it was like the hottest tickets in town were the women's events. It was like unbelievable. And I think what was so amazing about it was like a lot of the women's events, like there were loads of people like I didn't know. And it's just like, it just shows you there's like, I feel like I know quite a lot of women. So it's just like, there are just so many like just amazing women in our industry. And like, it's just really, really exciting that like we're the hottest ticket in town, you know? So the final question I have is about IRA. As you know, the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, was one of the hottest topics at RE+, sticking with RE+, this year. So I have to ask, what parts of the IRA are you most excited about specifically, or that you think will be most impactful?
Erin, you're the
you want me to go first? And then so this is like really big picture because there's so many great things in the IRA. It's like a salad bar of awesome. But
it's totally the quote we'll be leading with.
But the thing that I am most excited about is just structurally, if we do it right, the way and the incentive, if we've crafted the incentives correctly, around bringing more equity, not just into energy, but into our economy, bringing, I really believe like a rising tide lifts everyone. And I think we're at a time in our history that it is quite urgent that we really look at this past and learn from it and do better. And I know, because we worked on these pieces around environmental justice and inclusion in workforce recruiting and hiring and pay and you know, on and on and on, domestic industries coming back through manufacturing incentives. There is so much hope in this bill for everyone. And so my deepest desire and excitement is around full implementation that works. So that remains to be seen. And also that really changes the economy in ways that help so many families. That's my most exciting part.
Yeah, I mean, Erin said it a few minutes ago that the IRA did not fall out of the sky, right? It was years of work. And part of that work was, and I feel like I'm accurate in saying this, that SEIA in particular was a leading voice on the issue of equity being at the center of this piece of legislation, right? There were clearly members of Congress who had that vision, but in terms of the trades and the kind of corporate side, we were notable for our clear and focused voice on this,
Right.
and building coalitions and providing solutions and talking with companies about what was doable and what was not doable, and really advocating hard and winning on those things. And so we've never, like, as Erin said, sort of the structure of the bill puts equity at the center and incents economic behavior with social outcomes, right? And marries the two, which is pretty amazing for a piece of tax legislation, which ultimately is the vast majority of it. But what I feel is like the most hopeful is exactly what Erin said. Like, this is not just a piece of legislation. This is an opportunity that we need to realize, but an opportunity to really change the way we fuel our economy and change the way that energy is produced and manufactured here in the United States. And like, sometimes I get a little choked up about how we use the word transformational a lot, but this is a really transformational piece of legislation, right? We will look back, I think, at this in 5 years, 10 years, and certainly 20 years, and know that this is when the arc of history bent, and we did it differently than we've done it before. And to have had just a little role to play in that has been awe-inspiring and such an honor.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, ladies. I really appreciate you both and all the work that you do and your friendship. And thanks again.
Such a pleasure, you guys.
Thanks,
Good to see you.